Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys, a physique update from none other than Lee Priest. I don't think we've seen a full physique update from Lee Priest in like a decade. The last time we saw him compete was at NABBA Mr. Universe, which I believe was 2013. Currently, he's 49 years old. Now, I saw some people being critical of this physique update, and honestly, I think it's a pretty impressive physique update, all things considered. He's almost 50 years old. And you got to consider the fact that he had that nerve issue. He had pretty severe nerve damage that really limited his ability to train one side of his body. So with the training limitations, his age, and the amount of time it's been since he's been a competitive bodybuilder, all those things considered, I think he looks pretty good here. Now, I also saw some people sharing this saying that he wanted to come back and compete in the Masters Mr. Olympia. I don't know if that's necessarily true. We do know that they're bringing back the Masters Mr. Olympia in 2023. I don't know if Lee said that and he was just joking or trolling, because obviously with one side of his body being difficult to train, I mean, it would be hard to compete in bodybuilding having that kind of a symmetrical imbalance. But this is the kind of thing we've got to consider when we're talking about the Masters Mr. Olympia making a comeback. Is these would be the guys that would be doing the show, guys that are in Lee Priest age bracket, so maybe guys that competed in the late 90s, early 2000s, assuming that the Masters Olympia is going to be a 40-plus age bracket. I'm assuming they wouldn't do 50-plus because that just seems a little bit limiting. I don't think there would be too many guys competing at 50-plus, and I would think that'd be a bit of a liability. So you got to think about these guys. You know, Lee is in that age bracket, Sean Ray, Kevin Levrone, Dennis James, Dexter Jackson, just to name a few guys that are kind of in that, from that era, in that age. You know, would these guys come back to compete at the Masters Olympia and risk their health? Would it be worth it to really any of these guys? I'm kind of curious, and I'm really interested to see who actually shows up when they bring back the Masters Mr. Olympia. I really can't imagine that the prize money would be anything crazy that would encourage, like, Sean Ray to come back. Or even Kevin Levrone. I mean, these guys are making good money doing their own thing. And I was having this conversation as well with somebody at the Arnold. I find it interesting that the NPC got rid of teenage bodybuilding, and you got to assume they did that because they viewed it as a liability. But at the same time, I think within the same week, they announced that they were bringing back the Masters Olympia, which I would think would be an even bigger liability than guys competing as teens. But I'm curious to get your guys' feedback on this. A, how do you think Lee Priest looks? B, do you think he should do the Masters Olympia or will do the Masters Olympia? And C, do you think the Masters Olympia is a good idea at all? Do you think any of these guys should be, you know, should they come back and risk their health? Is it even worth it? Yeah, it'd be cool to see some of these guys on stage again, but is the price really worth it? But anyway, shout out to Lee Priest. I think he's still looking pretty good. Now, next up in the news, let's talk about a pretty controversial decision made by the IFBB Elite Pro. They posted this today on their website under the press release section. So again, this is not the IFBB Pro League. This is the IFBB Elite Pro under Rafael Santoja. This is the organization where Michael Krizo competes. They essentially announced today that they're going to be banning Russian and Belarusian athletes from competing in any IFBB Elite Pro events. And the reason they give is the situation going on right now in Ukraine. And I do try to stay away from political topics on this channel because really it's just not fun for anybody to talk about or hear. But we've seen the political side of this thing bleed over into strongman at the Arnold Classic with Alexei Novikov and Markov. Novikov is a Ukrainian athlete and Markov is a Russian athlete. And there was a little bit of a confrontation, some tension between the two of them. And then Arnold actually paid Alexei Novikov the full first place prize money, even though Alexei placed second. He paid him the $80,000. I think he was supposed to get $25,000 for second. But Novikov's going to go back and fight in the Ukraine. He's going to donate the prize money to Body Armor for his village in the Ukraine. And now we're seeing it bleed over into bodybuilding. And I wonder if this policy is going to be something that we see in this IFBB, the IFBB Pro League. So just to make the distinction clear, this IFBB is the one here is the one that has the Arnold Classic Ohio, the Olympia, the NPC feeds into it. That is what the IFBB Pro League is. This is the IFBB Elite Pro, which is more international. They do a lot of Eastern European competition. So those areas, Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, they're a lot more relevant to that organization than they are to this. While we do have athletes from those countries in this organization, it's not as big of a deal as it is over there. So it's much more close to home, literally and figuratively over there. Now, my personal opinion on it is I don't really think it's fair to see the athletes punished. I don't want to see anybody be banned or kept from competing, because really they didn't choose this war. But on the other hand, like I said, because this IFBB deals a lot specifically with that region, kind of Eastern Europe, I'm sure there's a lot more of a heightened sensitivity around this topic over there, so maybe this is done to avoid further issues. And a lot of people were asking me about Michael Krizo. I don't believe this affects him. I believe his nationality is Slovakian. And also Vitaly Ugonikov, good Vito, he's coming over to compete in the NPC anyway, but I don't believe this affects him either. I believe technically he is Ukrainian and not Russian, but he has competed in Russian competitions. Now, next up in the news, let's talk about Nick Walker. So Nick Walker just posted a physique update where he says he's weighing an impressive 295 pounds. And I got to say, I saw Nick at the Arnold, and this guy looks, I mean, he looks just as insane in person as he looks in these pictures online. And a lot of people were speculating that had he competed in the Arnold this weekend, he might have won. He probably would have won. So while we've got this physique update from Nick, we also got confirmation from him in his Instagram stories yesterday that not only will he be doing the Olympia, so that's going to be the next time we see him on stage, the 2022 Mr. Olympia, we're also going to see him on stage at the 2023 Arnold Classic right after that. Well, a few months after that. So I think he's kind of bummed that he didn't compete. I think it was more of a decision made by his former coach, Matt Jansen, and not so much a decision made by him not to do the Arnold this year. And I think he probably regrets not doing it, looking at the lineup and thinking he might have been able to win. So my question to you guys, what do you think the next year holds for Nick Walker at the Olympia? Keep in mind he placed 5th last year. Do you think he's going to improve upon that placing? And if so, by how many spots? Then he gets to defend his title at the 2023 Arnold Classic because he did not have the opportunity to defend it this year. Do you think he will successfully defend and win the 2023 Arnold? Personally, I think Nick is probably going to move up to 4th or 3rd at the Olympia to be more in that conversation for the win. And I think he's going to win. I think he's going to defend his title at the 2023 Arnold. Now, the final story that I have for you guys today, we got a couple of physique updates from Horse MD, a.k.a. Marcelo De Angelis. Now, I found these interesting because we have the Arnold Classic Brazil coming up. And at the Arnold Classic this past weekend, the Brazilian Classic physique bodybuilder Ramon Dino blew everybody's expectations out of the water. He was top 2. He looked fantastic. Extremely dangerous classic physique competitor. Brazil seems to be producing some of the top talent in bodybuilding right now across all the divisions. And Marcelo is no exception to that. He recently turned pro at that Expo Pro Super Show, and he was undecided as to whether or not he would do classic physique or men's open bodybuilding because technically he turned pro in the bodybuilding class. Well, it looks like he's made his decision. He announced that he was doing classic physique. These physique updates that he's posted have looked very impressive. Dare I say, even more impressive than Ramon Dino. And he looks to me like he's in pretty good shape, like he could possibly be prepping for a show. And I believe that Arnold Classic Brazil is at the end of April, like April 25th or something. So he's still got like 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks if he's prepping for that show. We know that Rafael Brandao is doing it. I've just got a feeling we might see him compete very soon. And we might see him in the conversation at the Classic Physique Olympia. If he competes in that show and wins that show, that would be his Olympia qualification right there. I mean, just look at Ramon and how quickly his career skyrocketed. He was relatively unknown, especially in the United States, and he went from top 5 at the Olympia to 2nd at the Arnold Classic to now one of the fan favorites in the division in just a span of a few months. So that's kind of the exciting thing about the Classic Physique class is that you've got all this young up-and-coming talent, and they can really have very quick rises to the top. It's just a matter of turning pro, qualifying, and going to the Olympia, and they can earn some of these crazy top placings. I really think some of these spots are up for grabs for a guy like Marcelo. But as always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you did in fact enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.